This is the inventor interface introduction. My idea today is to go through the process of how a part was created and in that process show the interface of inventor. To start with, if we look up here, this is the application menu. In the application menu we have the typical new, open, save, save as, print, close. Over here in the right column would be a history of the drawings that we have created. Up along here is the quick access toolbar. In that is the similar things that are in the application menu. New, open, save. In this there's undo and redo, which is a very important item there. Over here is the help. You can type in a keyword here, or you can click this question mark and it will open the Autodesk help search. This right here is the ribbon, and in the ribbon we have these tabs: sheet metal, model, inspect, tools, manage, view, environments, get started. In the ribbon is where most of the icons are. You'll notice here there's a hover over an icon. It'll bring up a name of the icon, and if you continue hovering it will bring up a description of how that icon works. Right here in the left is the model browser. It shows the history of how the part was created. Right now I have everything in suppression so I can show how this piece is eventually going to be created. Right here is our graphics window, our working area that we'll be doing most of the work in. This is the 3D indicator showing X, Y, and Z axis. To get started here, let's take a look at the sketch of this piece. Right here is the line tool. I used lines to draw this sketch out initially. It didn't matter the lengths that I drew this line. After you get your sketch drawn, you'll apply dimensions to those features, and the dimensions controls the size. If you'll notice here, if I double click on this and change that value, you'll see that the dimension controls the size of the line. When you're initially drawing, the lines come in green. When they're completely defined, the sketch turns blue. You'll want to make sure that your sketch is fully defined before you give volume to it by extruding it. We've got our piece defined here. We extruded it. You'll notice as I select the plane that I worked in that we did a mid-plane extrusion, keeping it centered. The next thing that was created was this sketch to create this curvature on the top here. Notice there are no dimensions. I made use of the existing thickness of the geometry to attach the arc to create this extrusion. Then the piece was extruded using this value and using these options here. Something I failed to mention is the sketch tab, but the sketch tab doesn't show up until you're editing a sketch. We're in the sketch tab here. You'll notice here's the line tools, here's dimension. As we are trying to define our object, we'll need to add constraints to those objects to completely define this sketch. The dimensions only will not completely define the sketch. Here's all the other options. Of course, we have our draw panel and our constrain panel and pattern panel, modify panel. That's all up in here in our sketch. When we go to give this sketch now volume, we go into the model and do the extrude. I'll edit this feature now so that we can see that this is a mid-plane extrusion of 38 millimeters. Our next feature is the curvature on the top. The sketch was this shape here. Again, notice that I didn't have to use any dimensions because I locked in my sketch to the edges of the existing geometry. Then I extruded the 19 that was required for this, leaving a little lip here. My next sketch was to finish the complete circular shape of that. I did have to, in this case, dimension this 38. Finish that sketch, and this circular feature was extruded up to the surface. Then I repeated the steps for this side over here. Our next feature is the hole cut through the center of these bosses. I started a sketch on that front face of the circular feature here. Gave it a dimension. Remember the dimensions are right here. Dimension that to 19. And then extrude cut that enough to go through both bosses. Our next feature here is the counter bore hole. We'll make use of the hole properties to create that. This one, no sketches had to be created because the whole feature here is intelligent. So we'll show you how this took place. I set up a counterbore option here and added the values to create this. The termination is just on the other side of this feature here. and making sure that the hole was concentric to the arc. Here, I hit OK, and then we added this hole feature, a smart hole feature. Next, I created this sketch on this surface, making sure that this feature was symmetrical around this center line, and then extrude cutting it through. Our next feature is here, creating this trapezoid shape to create that cut on that surface, making sure again that it was symmetrical around this center line, and adding the dimensions, and then extrude cutting it through the part there. Our next feature are these holes that cut through the neck of this part here. I started the sketch on this surface here. You'll notice that the sketch is hanging out in the air, which is okay. I located these parts, made sure they were connected to the center line, added the dimensions, and then extrude cut those through that part. Our last features here are the fillets, making use of the fillet feature here to add these 2 different size fillets here, and these 2 edges are 6mm fillets, and then all the others are 3mm fillets. This concludes the Autodesk Inventor interface.